But in a situation where you find that a person look at the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that.
Welcome back. It's now time to take a look at the major stories in the newspapers this morning. And we're starting with the Daily Trust newspaper. The Daily Trust major story says, after APC convention, confusion as Adamu Kyari hold 2 elective positions. We have riders there. One says, resign now, lawyers, PDP. The 1999 Constitution is silent on this kind of issue. Ruling party, mom, why we can't act, INEC. Then under that, we have the story of the Abuja-Kaduna train attack. It says passengers shot as terrorists bomb Abuja-Kaduna train. And under that major story, we have a story that says why governors escape legal hammer after over defections. Another says what I would do if I lose PDP ticket, Saraki. And top on the paper, on the top left of the paper, we have truck drivers more hike in haulage cost over diesel price extortion. And another story of interest there is the mixed feelings over fresh 92.12 billion for Abuja Airport's second runway.
Really very interesting stories, Stella. You know, we just finished talking about the one about passengers shot dead, passengers shot, as terrorists bomb Abuja-Kaduna train. And it's really, really quite tragic. Although there are other stories also, making their way through the Daily Trust newspaper. Just yesterday we also saw that suspended DCP Abba Kyari was being transferred to Kuje Correctional Center yesterday. A lot of people actually hope that he was going to be granted bail.
Yeah, he failed to make bail yesterday, so he's been transferred from where he has been held all this while. I think he's due in court sometime soon too, But again, I think that it's important for us to go back to this story on this passenger shot, as the incident is still surreal.
It is really, and I'm really hoping, to get, more updates from our reporter in Kaduna about what really transpired and how, what's really happening, because from the stories we've gathered, some of them have been taken to hospital and they're receiving treatment in a government hospital. Right
yes, Zainab, some of them. And then a lot of the stories say that some of those passengers were abducted. So maybe by this morning, maybe some of them would have been accounted for. Let's hope that the story update will be able to tell us that.
I also hear, I don't know if that has been confirmed yet, that I think a popular politician who was on board that train, has died recently. I don't know if that is confirmed yet, but I saw it in the news just recently that one of them has just died.
Oh. That would be tragic, but
really, really
I guess that as the day rolls by, more of the things that happen on that train will unfold.
Right, okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Punch newspaper this morning. Talking about the National Convention, Aregbe Shola, Liars Allies, agreed chieftain supporters dump APC. And then some of the riders there say crisis lingers in Kwara, Oshun, Zamfara, others despite Buhari's plea. You'd also see one of the riders that say aggrieved party members refuse to withdraw court cases in states. Adamu's peace panel fails to beat deadline on report submission. And then there's a pictorial there that shows you Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, his deputy Oba Hamzat, and protesters during the governor's visit to the Akpagbon section of Eko Bridge, where a market was recently razed by fire in Lagos. You find other stories right on the Punch newspapers talking about the economy. Marketers blame oil price, forex, as cooking gas price rises again. And on page 32 on the Punch, you see the story about Abba Kyari, others transferred to prison. Court denies DCP bail. And then just below the pictorial there on the Punch newspaper, 1.8 million candidates register for UTME JAM Partners CBT centers on diesel costs. Looks like the diesel thing is biting hard, at every corner. You'd also see the story on page 32 that states Kaduna Airport not attacked. 12 terrorists eliminated, and this is coming from the military. Recall that we had the story about, bandits attacking an airport in Kaduna.
Yeah, but the military issued a
has
statement yesterday saying that they were able to kill 12 of those people that attacked the airport.
That's really good news.
Yeah, that was what they said.
Okay, you'd also find other stories still on the Punch newspaper. The one about train derails as terrorists bomb Abuja Kaduna rail track. And on page 4, 8 killed as cultists engaged in supremacy battle in Ogun. Nogi plans protest as state assemblies get constitution amendment bill today.
Well, see, is it just me, or is it that the cultist attacks they're becoming
frequent?
They're becoming frequent.
Right.
There was a time it appeared like we had dealt with this issue of cultism across the country, but lately it appears that the whole thing is coming back, and forcefully too.
Some would say as the elections are coming by, a lot of these, cultist groups are propping up and ensuing violence. We've seen some happen in Lagos, and other parts of the south as well. But we really do hope that
we'll be able to nip it in the bud like they did it in the past.
Exactly.
Yes. How about this, the story on the National Convention? Aregbesola allies, chieftains, supporters dump APC.
Quite a lot of drama.
Yes, just, after the Saturday event at the Eagle Square, I was thinking that the APC had sorted out all its issues and that, it was going to be a new dawn for the party. But it appears that they are very far from that.
And it's the drama of politics just coming ahead of the
never
elections. We hope to see how that pans out subsequently.
So the Nation newspaper, the major story there says, Tinubu has set standard in leadership, says Buhari. That is the president saying this in tribute to Tinubu
sounds
clocking
quite an
70.
endorsement,
Yes, it does sound that. And then the writer, Lawan Wajabiamila, others hail former Lagos governor at 70. Then there's this story on the top left of the Nation. It says, no distraction, please. Emefiele tells campaigners.
Oh,
yeah, there's been a lot of campaigns. There's been a lot of posters all over the place telling the CBN governor to run. So I guess this is him responding.
Say, a lot of people have actually said that, well, he's not really interested. Maybe some of these, groups are the one propelling him to actually have interest, in contesting for the president.
Yeah, and that is why a lot of people have been speaking in the past few weeks that if he wasn't interested, he should come out, disown those people, because he is actually holding a very serious position at the moment. So I guess this is him talking, responding to all of that.
Really interesting.
Then there's this story there, Igalo Osimhen. Ghana must go down.
I saw some people in Ghana. There's a friend of mine I know, he works with DW, and then I think they were having a little banter between his Nigerian colleague and then Ghana. He was wearing the Nigerian jersey and he was saying Ghana must go down, just as it was written like here. But we really do hope that we see how this goes.
Zainab, between Nigeria and Ghana, it's never straight. It's never that straightforward. There's always this healthy rivalry between the two countries.
Ghana
As you're aware, the jury is still out on whose jollof rice is better between Nigeria and Ghana.
I think ours is better. I think
the Ghanaians will not take that from you. They insist their jollof rice is better. Yeah. So tonight, even as the game takes place at the stadium in Abuja, and of course, the major thing is for us to secure a spot in the Qatar 2022 World Cup. But I think there's also this thing about who is the boss between Ghana and Nigeria.
I hope we become the boss.
Then another story on the Nation newspaper is Wike Ayim South deserves PDP presidential ticket. Under that, we have Tambuwal Mohammed Saraki push on for North consensus.
Stella, I saw a video yesterday, you know, where Wiki was being interviewed on a political
Okay, I
program
saw that too.
on the channel's television.
I-
And he, from his response, it sounded that he had quite a sense of humor then. So some would say, what really happened to him at that interview?
Well, some people said it was a gaffe, but some people said that it was intentional.
Really?
I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. You know, because I listened to it over and over again, and I wanted to make sense out of what he was saying. So I guess as the days go by and as politics hits on, a lot of those kind of things will come up.
You know, a lot of comedians already are making skits out of that video.
I can imagine.
Right now.
I can imagine. They can't wait.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on the Blueprint newspaper this morning. The lead story there for the Blueprint leads, as terrorists attack Kaduna Abuja train, religious leaders must speak up against violence, and this is coming from the Sultan. And then some of the writers there say, urges youth education to curb insecurity, social vices. Catholic priest, 3 others kidnapped. Octogenarian set ablaze in Niger. Kaduna airport not shot. We killed 12 bandits. That's according to the Nigerian military. And then nomadic school closed down in Jigawa over deadly farmers-herders clash. You'd also see one of the riders say, we are worried over killings in southern Kaduna. You'd find other stories still on the Blueprint newspaper this morning. Federal government accuses PDP of plotting another NSAS misinformation. Says opposition overheating the polity. You'd also see performance claims anthology of APC lies. And this is coming from the PDP. And then you see another story just on the left side of a pictorial there that shows you some prominent Nigerians at the high-level dialogue of West Africa rising to the challenge of consolidating democratic governance at the Obasanjo Presidential Library in Abeokuta, Ogun State yesterday. 2023, stop distracting me. MFLA tells supporters, there you go again, quite a statement. I'm focused on robust monetary policy, fight against inflation. Sounds really, really determined to change, you know, Nigeria's monetary policy and all of that.
Yes, and you know, all this time that the posters were gracing the walls of buildings in Abuja and major places, a lot of people who have spoken, a lot of experts who have spoken have actually called on the CBN governor to look into those issues, monetary policy, and then fight against inflation. So, and they also insisted that the campaigns and the campaign posters were actually a distraction. So, you know. Azi, I see the story here, the call here by the Sultan.
Yeah, you know, I think we need that at this time. We need religious leaders to come together, you know, and speak against this violence that we're seeing. We've seen what has been happening in southern Kaduna, and it's really, really sad and alarming. And I really do hope that we see, you know, peace.
Yeah, and
reign.
seeing that Nigeria is a generally very religious country, I think that if all the religious leaders take up this call, you know, by the Sultan.
Truly, when you say a truly religious
you
country.
can see the way I drew it.
Yes, truly religious country. Yeah. And I think because we should use that truly being religious,
you know,
to come
let
together.
it be evident in our day-to-day lives, because, I mean, if all of us are religious, maybe these killings will stop.
I really do hope so. Okay, Stella, let's take a look at some more stories.
Yeah, so away from all the politics, here is Business Day. The major story on Business Day is Nigeria lags on COVID-19 vaccination 1 year after. We have another story there. Why ASU's payment platform wasn't approved. That is coming from NITDA. NNPC's 700 billion FAC deduction. NNPC's 700 billion FAC deductions since January cripple states' finances. There's another story here. Well, that's the much on the front page of Business Day. You know, Business Day is not known for having too many stories on its front page.
You know, this story about Nigeria lags on COVID-19 vaccination 1 year after. You know, at some point we had COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy, from a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I think that changed over time.
Did it?
Yeah, I think it changed because a lot of people had more. Have you taken your vaccine?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
Okay.
Both
then.
doses, might I add.
Oh, interesting. A lot of people were really hesitant to take the vaccines, but with a lot of more enlightenment, and then the enforced no vaccine, no work, policy. I think a lot of people actually tried.
Well, I wouldn't say a lot. I would say some. And in any case, I also observed that a lot of Nigerians that were going for the vaccinations, a lot of them want to travel out of the country. And they know that it will be required wherever it is that they're going to.
But
So
that's a good thing, isn't
they
it?
try to take it. Yeah, but like you said, the initial hesitancy was there, but after a while, more people opened up to it and accepted it. But, I think that, with other countries now relaxing their protocols and all of that, for a country like Nigeria, where a lot of people were initially hesitant, a lot of people even said there was no COVID, their case would be worse, A lot of people will say, okay, if this country is where they have so many people dying, you understand? So if indeed, I think there needs to be more sensitization, and there needs to be more propelling, sensitization, calling on the people that, okay, it's not yet to huru, this thing can come back at any time. So it's better to just go out there and take the vaccination.
A lot of people, scientists as well, have also said that Africa has been quite lucky because it was not really deadly for us back
Till
here.
now, nobody knows what works for Africa.
Well, some will say prayers. There's this story also about ASU's payment platform wasn't approved. Why ASU's payment platform wasn't approved? This is coming from NITDA. And ASU, I saw, I think, in a statement saying that NITDA is just finding means, of playing coy with this issue, of payment for ASU.
This issue of ASU's payment platform has been on for a long time. And I think it's about time both parties returned to the table and discussed it so that at least there will be a way out of it. You understand? This is a problem that has gone on for too long, if you ask me.
It has really. But we really hope to see that that comes to a halt. Let's take a look at one more paper. Later, we're going to be having the Deputy Business Editor, Sunday Michael, to take a look at some of the story, to have a review, of some of the stories that make their headway on our dailies this morning. But let's take a look at the Leadership newspaper. And then the Leadership newspaper leads with the story about terrorists bomb Kaduna rail tracks, 970 passengers stranded. And then the riders there say our attackers over 50 in number. This is coming from victims. Travelers feared kidnapped. And then you see the story about Nigeria Air applies for operational license, notifies NCAA. PDP presidential race not for 70-year-olds. This is coming from Otom. And then ASU NIDA says UTAS failed 156 out of 687 tests. Oh, wow. Okay. Federal government orders shutdown of offices for Nigeria-Ghana match today.
Wow.
And then National Convention, PDP's suit against APC, act of desperation. This is coming from the federal government. And then there's an explainer, that shows you the train, the Kaduna-Abuja train. Then you could quickly read that on the Leadership newspaper this morning. Quite very interesting stories.
Yeah,
Stella.
very interesting stories indeed. I see that they also had this Kaduna-Abuja attack. I can see
it's everywhere.
Yeah, it's the major story, sadly.
Okay, we're going to be having Sunday Michael a little bit later, to talk to us about some of these stories. But for now, let's take a look at a story about the Federal High Court refusal to grant the bail application of suspended DCP Abba Kyari. Murdia Umar attended the hearing, and now here's our report.
Abba Kyari is facing charges bordering on deals in illicit drugs. He's already facing extradition to the United States on charges of wired fraud. The second defendant, who is an assistant superintendent of police, is under investigation for money laundering and may face charges on some offences.
We have moved the bail applications in regards to the top defendants and the court has adjourned for the 27th of April for the ruling. And because the last sitting, we were served a counter affidavit, which of course we responded to. And based on that, we moved our motion today. And the court adjourned for 27. We are hoping that the judge will benevolent their request, grant us 1 out of the 7 kola nuts before the court.
Recall that the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, and the second defendant opted for bail application because of medical conditions. But according to NDLEA, the medical condition of suspended Abba Kyari, it's not beyond its capacity. And on this premises, among other strong cases that was made by the NDLEA against suspended DCP Abba Kyari, his bail application was not granted by the court. And one thing worthy of note is that, yes, we have the NDLEA personnel waiting for the suspended DCP Abba Kyari and other applicants to get out of court, but it seems that they will be handed over to the Nigerian Correctional Service because his prayer to remain under the custody of the NDLEA was not granted by the court. And one thing also worthy of note is the fact that on the 28th of April has been set aside to review the cases of the 6th and 7th defendants who pleaded guilty to the charges.
After the sitting, we waited almost 5 hours for the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police to be handed over to the Nigerian Correctional Service, which eventually happened. Martia Umar, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Welcome back. Now we'll take our daily hustle.
6 a.m.
Yeah, it's indeed a very beautiful morning. Thanks for joining us. I am Stella Iyaji.
Okay, here are the headlines at this. Bandits bomb a Kaduna-bound train. Now our reporter Fatima will give us an update from Kaduna in the next hour.
Suspended DCP Abba Kyari denied bail by the Federal High Court.
We also have passengers shot as IPOB enforces sit-at-home order in Enugu.
Free at last, Federal High Court cleared former Minister Tanimo Turaki of money laundering charge.
NNPC to deduct 328 billion naira from its monthly Federation account contribution for subsidy payment next month.
Canada qualifies for first World Cup in 36 years as Super Eagles prepare to face Ghana tonight.
We'll have more on these stories in the next hour. We'll also bring you some of the stories, that made headlines on our dailies this morning.
And today on Daybreak, discussion will center around intrigues and power play in the People's Democratic Party, as well as unemployment rate in Nigeria. Plus the big one, Super Eagles take on Ghana in Qatar 2022 World Cup qualifier.
You do want to stay tuned, to have a look at the discussions that will follow through that as the show progresses. I will also bring you my daily hustle on the show. This is how this piece showcases how Nigerians are surviving on a daily basis.
But first, the news highlights. Bandits on Monday derailed the Abuja-Kaduna train after they laced the track with improvised explosive devices, IEDs, that went off a few minutes to 8 p.m. between Dutse and Kakao in Kaduna State. One of the passengers on the train told Daily Trust that the bandits bombed the train track with an IED, which forced the train to derail. Upon the stoppage of the train, the assailants were said to have begun to fire gunshots sporadically. He added that the terrorists later forced their way into the train and kidnapped an unspecified number of people, with some others feared killed. Meanwhile, troops have been mobilized to the scene of the attack to rescue the remaining passengers.
Now, Federal High Court Abuja on Monday declined to grant the bail application of suspended DCP Abba Kyari. Justice Emeka Nwite, in a ruling, held that the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency had placed sufficient evidence before the court to refuse the bail request. Justice Nwite also rejected bail plea of Kyari's co-defendant. Now, the news agency of Nigeria reports that the NDLEA, in its counter affidavit, held that it was inappropriate to grant bail to the applicant because of the facts and circumstances of the case.
A federal high court in Abuja on Monday discharged and acquitted former Minister of Special Duties and Intergovernmental Affairs, Kabiru Turaki, of money laundering charge. Justice Ian Ekwo, in a ruling on the no-case submission filed by the defense, said the EFCC had failed to link Turaki and his co-defendants with the offenses contained in the 16-count charge. He said that the prosecution could not establish a prima facie case against them. Justice Ekwo said that the defendants dislodged all the evidence of the prosecution witnesses called in the matter during cross-examination, describing the 12 witnesses relied on by the EFCC as tainted witnesses. The news agency of Nigeria reports that the EFCC had, in the 16-count charge, accused the ex-minister and others of unlawful and criminal misappropriation of 750 million naira.
In other news, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has announced the deduction of 328 billion from state government's monthly contribution to the federal account for April 2022. The country's oil company made this known in its Federation Accounts Allocation Committee report for March, published on its website over the weekend. According to the report, NNPC said it failed to contribute a kobo to the Federation account in the last 2 months because it paid 430.165 billion as fuel subsidy. The NNPC stated that in January this year, the sum of 210.38 billion was used to subsidize petrol, while 219.78 billion was spent as subsidy in February.
Gunmen believed to be enforcing the Monday sit-at-home order of the indigenous people of Biafra reportedly shot at passengers in the New Market area of Enugu North local government area of Enugu State on Monday. The bus conveying the passengers who left their homes early to attend to their businesses was said to have been riddled with bullets. A source said the government struck around Colliery Hospital, killing some passengers. But there were also conflicting reports on the casualty figure, as some sources claimed that at least 2 persons were killed, although the police said there were no deaths. Enugu State Police Public Relations Officer ASP Daniel Undukwe, who confirmed the incident, said there were no known deaths recorded.
Okay, now let's take a look at what's happening in sports. Super Eagles of Nigeria will today take on the Black Stars of Ghana in the 2022 World Cup in Qatar. The two teams on Friday in Kumasi played out a goalless draw. Nigeria hope to join the likes of Canada that have qualified for the World Cup for the first time in 36 years on Sunday with an emphatic 4-0 victory over Jamaica in Toronto. The win sparked wild celebrations at Toronto's 30,000 capacity BMO field, where an expectant sellout crowd had gathered to watch Canada clinch World Cup qualification for only the second time, having last appeared at the 1986 Mexico tournament. Now, Canada's English manager John Herdman took over the men's team in 2018 after a successful stint in charge of Canada's women's team, said the qualification is a proof that Canada is a football country.
And that's all we can take. We're going to take on the news update for now. We'll now go back to our top story about the plight of former textile workers. Textile industry was a big business in Nigeria, especially in the north in the 70s. In the 70s, 80s, and early 90s. Most of these factories are today a shadow of themselves. How are the former workers faring? Trust TV Fatima Ladan speaks to one of them who resorted to running a commercial motorcycle to survive. Now,
Baba says, despite his old age, riding commercial motorcycle in Kaduna State is his only source of income. But recent ban placed on motorcycles in the state worsened his misery.
Our entitlement has not been paid. Even our salary for good 8 months has not been paid. Our annual leave, long service award attached to the gratuity, all has not been paid to us. Even those being terminated, resigned, they have not been paid up to date. We have been struggling up and down by doing Okada work to manage our life. Even some of our workers, died. Almost about, I think it's about 350 or 400 have died, right from 2004, December 2004. Even before then, our workers have been dying. Some of them, their wife divorced them because of this lack of money to feed them. To go for the medical treatment is a problem. We have been calling them to pay our gratuities, but nobody listening to us. Even the secretaries have done their best. We have been fighting, even call the state government, call the federal government, go to here and there. Up to today, up to this hour, no answer to our call.
The national president of the Textile, Garment and Tailoring Workers Union, John Adaji, says efforts of the union to ensure that workers get their entitlements fail to yield any result.
KTL is in Kaduna, here in the heart of Kaduna, owned by 19 northern states. The second one is Arewa Textile. Both of these textiles are in Kaduna here. It's not that they unilaterally closed down, but it's worrisome because our members were not paid their entitlement. And 2 decades down the ladder, the number of our members that have died because of suffering, their children has become a destitute in the streets, frustration, many of them have gone. The money we are looking for the case of a kettle is about between 6 to 7 or 800 million, which is less than $1 billion. And I say this, that if you share, even let's say it's $1 billion, ask 19 states to share it, because they are the owner. So if they share it, what it means, each person will pay less than 40 million or less than 50 million. So what does it take them?
Arewa Textile is closed for nearly 17 years with over 4,000 workers laid off. Up till now, the workers are still waiting and hoping to get their terminal entitlements paid. Fatima Salaladan, Trust TV News, Kaduna.
Zainab, the report, it's pathetic what has become of the Nigerian textile industry, right?
Indeed, it looks really, really tragic because that plant has been shut down for over, 17 years. And you can see, from that story how, some of the workers, they are struggling to survive.
Yes, a lot of them have become a shadow of themselves, just the way the companies have become a shadow of themselves. It's horrible. I hope something will be done to revive those companies.
Yeah, we're really hoping to see that. Now let's take a look at the event of the 29th of March in world history.
Okay, now we're going to take the newspaper review, and with us this morning to look at the major stories making the headlines is the Deputy Business Editor of Daily Trust newspaper, Mr. Sunday Ogu. Sunday, you're welcome to the studio.
It's a pleasure to be here again. And you
It's
look
always,
nice, by the way.
Thank you. It's always a delight to have you.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for coming as usual on the program.
Okay. So, Mr. Sunday, as we're starting with the Daily Trust, the major story is after APC convention, confusion as Adamu Kyari hold 2 elective positions. And then under that, okay, there are some riders under the story. One says, resign now, lawyers, PDP. Another says, the INEC says, why we can't act. Then under that, there's this story that has shocked not a few Nigerians. Passengers shot as terrorists bomb Abuja-Kaduna train. Then on the top left of the Daily Trust, we have truck drivers more hike in haulage cost over diesel price, extortion. There's also this story, mixed feelings over fresh 92.12 billion for Abuja Airport second runway. There's this story down there that says, what I would do if I lose PDP ticket, Saraki. I guess a lot of people want to read that story. So, Mr. Sunday, what do you say about this story? Passengers shot as terrorists bomb the Abuja-Kaduna train. Up until recently, or up until now, it was considered the safest form of travel. No, the second safest after air travel.
It's when I got that story last night, it sent shivers down my spine because I had to use that train not too long ago. And like you rightly mentioned, well, maybe for the bourgeois it's the second safest, but it's actually the safest for the masses. To think that it conveys about 1,000 people at a time when the roads have become a complete death trap because they've been taken over by the activities of bandits. One would think that we would have done everything to protect the rail corridor, you know. What is even more pathetic is the fact that this is coming less than 48 hours after the runway was taken over. You would want to think that there is the coordination, there seems to be a synergy between those who attacked the airport and those who have attempted to overrun the rail. You know, first of all, by bombing the track, which makes it a very sophisticated attack because bombs are not things you pick on the shelf, and then attempting to break into the cabins up until members of the Nigerian army came to their rescue. So it's something that should worry every concerned Nigerian because, I mean, with the level of development, Kaduna and Abuja, you know, can be mistaken to be members of the same family because, I mean, it's a journey that is less than 2 hours. That should worry everybody.
You know, from you know, reports we're hearing, quite a number of people were injured, and just I think just earlier I heard that a popular politician who was aboard that train, you know, passed away. A lot of people, you know, from hearing that would say, it looks like we're in trouble.
We are indeed in trouble. There is no way you would have to make that look any lighter than it is. The politicians of late, if you had used the train, you will notice a trend. They've, as a matter of fact, they have, if there is a word for it, colonized or monopolized the first class cabin. Right. You just can't even get into the first class cabin. Somehow they find a way of buying the entire ticket. It's just the politicians and their aid because they too are afraid for their lives, by the way. I mean, you have gotten to a place where you think, oh, I'm finally here, it's time to enjoy the spoils, and you don't want to give any chances. So they've resorted to the trains for over 3-4 years. That has been their major means of transportation. And you can imagine, for the hours that the shooting lasted, I mean, for anybody who has a high BP condition, that is enough to even send you to the underworld without even a bullet hitting you. So without missing words, we are in a very serious day.
Well, there were conflicting reports yesterday. There were some messages that were sent out by some of the people that were on the train saying shootings have been ongoing for a while and nobody has come to our rescue. Even though shortly after that, there was an official statement from the Kaduna State government saying that security operatives have responded. Do you think that the response was quick enough?
If you understand how the track runs, they don't run side by side with the roads, you know. So between the time when the first SOS would have gone out and when the security guys would respond, there is always a lapse, you know, which also suggests that there is the need to review the security architecture on the tracks. What we see, if you're familiar with that corridor, is just members of the civil defense, half the times not even armed. Or maybe they keep their ammunition somewhere, we don't see them, I don't know, but clearly from what has happened, we would have to find a way to dedicate a coach to specialized security units, that will be properly armed to respond to the kind of things we saw yesterday. Because the moment the bombings happened, the train derailed, so there was no way it could continue. And if not because by the nature of the way trains are built, they are made of heavy metallic substance, that sporadic shooting would have meant that we would have recorded more casualties than we are hearing this morning, because the trains took most of the shocks, unlike vehicles that have glasses and the rest of it that will allow bullets to perforate easily. The train took most of the bullets, thereby shielding the passengers from very grievous attack. But, there will be panic attacks. There are those who naturally are battling with their life with all kinds of management diseases. That panic alone is enough to cause a fatal situation.
From what we're seeing right now, it seems like all the means of transportation are not safe anymore. We saw the one about the bandits attacking the runway and all that, and some will say that was supposed to be the safest for some, and then we're seeing this. Where do we go from here? What do we do?
I wish I have some kind of answers to what you are saying, but I mean, we didn't just arrive here by accident. In the last 3-4 years, we've been seeing devil attacks around important installations in this country, especially in Kaduna. The corridor leading to the Kaduna airport has been under attack for more than 3 years. Just after Mando, before you get to the new site of the Nigerian Defense Academy, there have been reported attack of terrorist activities coming into town, picking up people from that axis, or even hitting one or two installations there.
Sunday I was going to say something like that. I was going to say that before now, there have been reports. Nothing as deadly as this happened, but there were reports of attacks, or planned attacks. Do you think that we left it too late, or something could have been done to avert this?
Yeah, clearly we left it too late. I mean, if people, when we talk about Kaduna, why we become passionate about it is, if you understand the nature of Kaduna, then you have reasons to be afraid. In the Hausa parlance, they refer to Kaduna as Bariki. I think it has one of the largest military settlements around that. All kinds of military formations are available in Kaduna. More than 5 of them I can count off the. So you want to think that with that kind of military presence, I mean, the depot in Zaria, one div in Kawo, there is Kalapazi in Kakuri, there is command, there is, with all those kind of military formation, there is Air Force in Mando, there is NDA right there in that place. You want to think that whenever there is a security concern, the response rate will be swift, and they will go all the way to fly. It's not enough for people to come into town and you say you have repelled the attack. I don't understand the language. What repel simply means is like you are in your house, you have noticed that the burglar is trying to come in, you make some sound to give them the impression that you are attacked, and they go back. If they are hell-bent on breaking into your house, they will come back again. Right. They will continue to do that until such a time that they either don't meet you at home or they come in with something that subdues you to enable them get what you want. I mean, so it's not enough to repel. You have to follow up to flush out these persons from their hideout. I mean, that hideout is nothing more than Kaduna and Niger State, the Regina down to the Tegina area of the state. So it's the reason why you worry. What would you then say of places that don't have this amount of military presence? So clearly we left it too late, or we didn't even do anything about it until they hit the NDA, took out trainees, went into the Federal Airport Authority quarters, took out staffs, and nothing was done until they returned and attempted to. I mean, as at yesterday, all commercial aircraft running on that route have grounded their operations, waiting for a review of the military situation. I mean, with the news yesterday, the railway service have also grounded their operation. You can imagine the halt in economic activities and every other thing that is going on right now.
Well, we're on a lookout, to see how this pans out subsequently, and we're going to be bringing you an update, about that situation subsequently as the show progresses. Now, Mr. Sunday, there's a story away from that, a political story actually, the one about confusion as Adamu Kyari holds 2 elective positions.
Some people have said that they should resign, and the constitution does not make provision for this kind of situation. So what can you speak to them?
The Nigerian political landscape is a very interesting one, very dramatic. I mean, every day you wake up They can, like I said on this show several times, they can favorably compete with the Nollywoods. You know, they keep the scenes are epic. You are not sure what you would, what you will see the next day. You know, it's as interesting as it gets. It's only in this country that you are occupying one elective position and you are showing interest in another and not necessarily letting go of the other, even though you know functioning in both places optimally would be nearly impossible. They could point to one or two antecedents. They could point to lacunas in our constitution that sometimes does not go all out to spell out what is allowed and what is not. I think it's on that basis that other people are saying, see, this is morally wrong. We may not find justification for it in our laws or constitution, but how do you even function? I mean, some of us had thought that prior to this time, even the caretaker committee headed by a governor of a state who should be concentrating in improving the lots of his citizens was a misnomer, as it were, you know. And now you have a sitting senator who is a party chairman and you have other members. So the positions of law, it's not clear as it is. We are not sure what that is. We don't also know what will happen in the coming day with regards to these people looking at what is before them and saying, okay, this deserves more of my time. I should rather, because in the case of Adamu, for instance, I wonder what would take precedence because his party is going into a major battle come 2023. His state, his constituency expects some level of representation in the Senate. So how do you even juggle? Both of them are full-time jobs, by the way. So I wonder how, at his age, he will be able to juggle.
Some people may say that there was no way they could have resigned before the convention, seeing that, I mean, it was an election. You do not know whether you're going to win or not, even though in Adamu's case, it was almost clear-cut. The story was out there that he was the consensus candidate. However, you know, anything can happen. As you know, the unity list didn't happen the way we all thought it was going to happen. So some people have said that there was no way they could have resigned, knowing that they weren't so sure about what will happen at the convention on Saturday.
I agree, but there's also a moral part of the argument. If you are truly focused on something, there are just two ways. You are going to win or lose. You cannot continue to hold something in abeyance. It does appear like what you are doing is to, it's like playing some cards. Let's throw this one. If it works, then we shift positions. You do not also give room for people to properly aspire to take over the positions where you are holding. So you hold on to something, and when you get the two, you basically just put them on a scale and say, okay, this is more important than this, and you drop this. In this case, we are not even sure what Adamu is going to do. The way the party is going about it, it does appear like whether or not he will want to continue in the Senate would be his own decision. Remember, the party, hold the ace in the Senate. They may choose not to declare his position vacant. Unlike what we have seen in the past where senators were nominated to become ministers and immediately resigned their positions in the Senate and moved on to those are appointive positions. But in the case of the party chairman, I think in the last 90 days, he had made up his mind he wanted to go for this position. It was sufficient time to have decided whether to continue to hold on to the Senate position or relinquish that and fully focus on this. Whether or not at the end of the day he emerged the consensus candidate or even the victor in the whole process. The people who have argued for this have argued on the grounds of morality that if you're interested in something else, it's important that you let go of your current position and throw yourself in the contest like every other person as a neutral candidate and test your power, in the real sense of the word, rather than hold on to an office and use the benefits of that office to advance your ambition into another office. I think it was purely on moral grounds that people have said, if you want to do this, then let go of this.
Oh, we hope to see how that pans out subsequently. Now, let's take a look at the Nation newspaper this morning. And it's leading with a story about Tinubu has set standard in leadership, says Buhari. That sounds quite an endorsement, isn't it? And then there's a rider there that says President Lawal Gbajabiamila, others hail former Lagos governor at 70. And then right at the top, you see the story about no distraction, please. Emefiele tells campaigners. And then Telcom blackouts likely in Abuja, Ondo, Ekiti, others. And then you see also the story about Wike Anyim South deserves PDP presidential ticket. And Tambuwal Muhammad Saraki push on for North consensus. And then there's a sports story right at the top on the Nation newspaper that talks about Igalo Osimhen, Ghana must go down. Court declines Abakari, 6 others bail plea. These are some of the major stories on the Nation this morning.
Yeah, Sunday, Tinubu has declared interest in the upcoming elections, and today the president says Tinubu has set standard in leadership. What does that say?
I mean, Zainab said that feels like some endorsement. Maybe, maybe not. I think what we cannot deny is that the evolution of Lagos, as we have come to know today, started with the man Tinubu. Basically, Lagos, I think, never understood how much it had the capacity to be self-sufficient until that famous fight between Tinubu and the then president Olusegun Obasanjo, where FAC allocations was denied the state, and they had to dig deep, and and they found the leverage, to survive without a federal allocation. That was a major litmus test in his administration as a governor, and several others, including ensuring that they had successive governance that built on a blueprint that was designed in his administration. So when the president said that he has set standard in leadership, clearly we understand where he's coming from. But whether or not that is an endorsement come 2023, I mean, it's left to be seen. The president's body language is one that sends conflicting signals right now. Right now, maybe in the coming weeks, it will become clearer what kind of dance is going on at the presidency. But right now, I think it is fair for you to eulogize the person of Tinubu, especially because, again, he was instrumental to the emergence of the current president, and history will continue to remember him for the role that he played.
Very, very interesting. We're also seeing that Emefiele is saying no distraction. Campaigners should not propel him.
Well,
seems like he's not interested.
I don't understand whether that is a distraction or that is another political statement. His statement is coming less than 24 hours after Amechi said, those who want me to be president should give me the money instead. And I was saying to my head, but you had said 3-4 years ago that you don't like money. Why suddenly are you asking that the money be given to you? I think it's trying to play safe. The question of morality had also popped up severally in the case of his own candidature. You occupy an office that is very sensitive, that is apolitical, and the tendency is for the international community and even major economic players and stakeholders in the country to begin to look at your economic policies from the prism of a political interest. So every time you do something, they begin to analyze those things from a political perspective. They said, oh, he had probably taken a CBN intervention to Kanu because he's hoping to become the president and he expects some kind of massive vote from Kanu. He's doing this here. And by the time you begin to get those kind of analysis, those kind of interpretations of what is supposed to be a pure economic decisions based on certain indices, you're already derailing as an Apex bank. And that could have consequence for your actions because they will not translate. People will merely see them as political activities and they would not show interest. And so it will not take root at the grassroots. So
Sunday,
I think,
with all of this thing that you have said, shouldn't he have said this a lot earlier?
Of course, that is why I thought that he courted the endorsement, largely because, if you recall, he had audience with some of the persons championing his cause much earlier, some 5-6 weeks ago, and he said only the presidents, only God, can tell who will become the president. He would have outrightly said to them, look, I want to focus on bringing down inflation. I want to focus on regulating the naira and dollar rate. I'm not interested, outrightly. But I think he clearly courted the call for his endorsement. Whatever had happened in the last 6 weeks, I don't know. Maybe that is why we are seeing a different kind of song. But like I said, it's only a matter of time before people, unmax themselves and come out for truly what they want to do, and we will understand by then.
Wow, really very, very interesting. I would also want you to react to this. You know, I'm going to tie it to a video yesterday that we saw where Wike in an interview on Trust, sorry, I really love Trust Television, Channels TV,
Yeah.
you know, where he made quite a very sarcastic, some would say sarcastic, but he displayed some sense of humor, some would say. And then we're seeing that he's saying South deserves a presidential ticket. He's really standing on his words.
It has, in fairness, even though there is no written, I mean, our constitution did not specify those, but for the sake of equity and fairness, people have felt that this journey has gone on for a while. It is important that every part of this country, you know, get a shot at the presidency, just to create a sense of belonging and unity, as we have enshrined in what we now call today the federal character. It's all to give a sense of ownership to people from every part of this country. Whether it is the South Side, I don't know, because they got a shot in the days of President Goodluck Jonathan. Whether it happened by providence or whatever, I think they've gotten. I think the people who lay major stake and claim, you know, to this whole rotational thing are the people from the Southeast. So I don't understand the logic behind his argument. Maybe he's talking about a second term that President Jonathan did not get the opportunity to do well. I don't know what that. But talking about sarcasm,
I guess you saw that video too.
I think Wike is, you know, is a comedian of some sort. From even the baritone of his voice to the way he tries to put out those things. But beyond the surface, he makes certain claims, you know, that are germane, that speaks to the kind of democracy that we practice, the kind of party politics that we practice, a party politics that is devoid of ideology. Outside this country, I met a politician who is a member of the Congress in France, and during the introduction, there are quite a number of parties in France, and she just said, I don't know if you remember my party or the party name if I introduce here, but I just want you to know that I'm a socialite. That's a political ideology. We know what the socialite stands for. We know what the capitalist stands for. We know what people in the far right or, you know, the extreme left or the moderates, the liberals stand for. And so for them, because they have taken that political ideology, whatever they would support would always have that coloration. They would not go to the extreme. They will always support a socialist movement, a socialist intervention, a socialist ideology to things. So you could understand where they are coming from. These parties we have in Nigeria have different, well, if they even have ideologies. 1 minute you are here, if you can't fulfill your political ambition, you jump to the next one. I mean, look at the current APC. The current leaders of APC are founding members of the PDP. How do you even explain that? The same set of people going around, and when they shift from this place, they said, I mean, the current APC chairman said, they are here to change, to make sure that they write off the 16 years of disaster in the PDP. He was governor for 8 years in the PDP in that founding era. He became a senator on that platform for 4 years. So 12 out of 16 years, he was part of a disaster. And now he's a progressive. So it's crazy. And that was what he was pointing to, that when it mattered most, people jumped ship and left this to sink. Some of them had to stay behind to enable it remain afloat. Now that it appears like they are stabilized, they have remained alive after coming out of the intensive care unit, people are jumping back to say we are the founding fathers. Well, you know, but what sort of a father would have jumped ship when this ship was heading for disaster?
Sunday, some people are saying that it's okay for you to want something to come to your region or a particular region. However, is it easy to get it by force? Wouldn't it be better to court other members of the party from other regions to, you know, so that you can get it done?
In fairness, that is one area where Wike doesn't seem to have done very well. Some of the governors that defected from the party did so because of the rancor. And I mean, you could imagine how he was even addressing a governor of another state recently when they had another paper. So clearly, it is one thing to want it. It is another for you to convince your colleagues from the other side to support that agenda. You can always never get it by force. It is not enough to say because you deserve it, it will come to you. You have to work for it. You have to convince people to buy into your argument and also give you the support ultimately. I mean, it's not going to be a consensus, and even if it were, you have to go to the polls and at least get 51% of the total votes in the country. So I agree. It's not something you can coerce people to give to you. It's one part of politicking that I think Wike really needs to maybe understand and cultivate as a person.
All right. Up next is, let's take a look at some of the major stories in the Punch. National Convention. Aregbesola lies allies. Aggrieved chieftain supporters dump APC. The first writer says, crisis lingers in Kwara, Osun, Zamfara. Others, despite Buhari's plea. Another says, aggrieved party members refuse to withdraw court cases in states. Adamu's peace panel fails to beat deadline on report submission. Under that, there's the story of the train derails as terrorists bomb Abuja Kaduna rail track. We have seen that in other newspapers. Then another story, 8 killed as cultists engage in supremacy battle in Ogun. Nolge plans protest as state assemblies get constitution amendment bill today. So let's speak to the first story. We see some aggrieved chieftains of the APC already dumping the party less than barely 48 hours after the convention that they all waited so long for. What do you say to that?
Speak to the last point I made. Speak to the typical Nigerian politician. The parties are just vehicles for them to be used and dump if they don't serve your purpose and jump on any other thing that gives you the opportunity to shoot at your political ambition. That is what we are seeing. But fundamentally, not to appear to be speaking to just one side of the issue, is the fact that there had been issues. Members have been aggrieved for a while. As a matter of fact, Adamu became critical to that whole process of reconciliation that never really was concluded, before his emergence as a party chairman. So people were aggrieved for the right or wrong reasons, if you like, and they were not properly dealt with. Their concerns were not seen to have been taken into account. And what happened at the convention was because that reconciliation didn't happen, some of them did not even get the opportunity to have been part of the convention because delegates were not drawn from their own faction of the party. What that means is it creates a sense of victory to the other party, and the thinking really is, if we are doing so much for this party or we have done so much in the past, and they do not recognize that we are critical stakeholders, then it's about time we shift our support base to something else that recognizes us. So that is what we have seen. The defection is typical of what we see in the Nigerian political landscape. Maybe with the emergence of Adamu, who had toured around this country trying to listen to every faction, he may then begin some serious effort at reconciling people. If you recall some of the things that were said at the venue of the convention by, let's say, Barrister Shitu, who was a former minister, who was a strong member who was an APC founding member, who in fact drafted the first constitution of the party, but was edged out by somebody who defected into the party less than a year ago. And they come up and said, they're announcing a consensus. He said, consensus are supposed to be agreement. If we need a consensus candidate from the three of us, we're all supposed to say, who gives us the best shot at what we are looking at? It's not enough to wake up and say, oh, no, Stella is beautifully dressed. She looks like the perfect candidate. It doesn't matter what anybody thinks. It has to be Stella. I mean, what happens is, somehow you get to push Stella forward, but you then create a rancor, within the system, and then the needed support she needs, to succeed becomes missing.
Well, thank you so much for coming on Daybreak Sunday. We hope to have you as usual next time.
It's my pleasure.
When the situation where you find that a person look at the
Not necessarily tribal or regional.
I have said that.